Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 26th of September 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the Isle of Man. Background to that news with sport, business, Sea-Watch, travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, another Douglas brownfield development is revealed. One head teacher over two schools is a stretch. Captain of the Parish resigns. Your views on animal welfare are welcome, and the Ravens head to Gigg Lane in Bury tonight, here at the home of the Halfway Horse Tram.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Faster Mai, Siobhan Fletcher.
Faster Mai. Work could begin in as little as 6 months for a £30 million development, which would see a new casino built in the centre of Douglas. Property company Alto Stratus has been trying to transform the Middlemarch site for some time and is understood to have now submitted plans. All of tomorrow's Manannan sailings have been cancelled due to poor weather forecasts. A yellow weather warning will be in place for severe gales across the whole island from tomorrow afternoon until midnight. The Steam Packet has also made changes to its other sailings. You can find out more on this at manxradio.com. FC Isle of Man head to the historic Gigg Lane Stadium tonight as they face NWCFL Premier Division title hopefuls Bury at 8 p.m. this evening. The Ravens are without a win in their last 6 outings and sit 13th in the table. They're coming up against the Bury side, which is just 1 point off the top of the league. Further afield, the head of the Metropolitan Police says it faces difficult choices, with many firearms officers extremely anxious. Hundreds have stood down from duties following a murder charge against one of their colleagues. Sir Mark Rowley says London has significantly less cover now. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey is promising new legal right for cancer patients to start treatment within 2 months if he's elected into the next UK government. Closing the party's autumn conference in Bournemouth, he pledged £4 billion over 5 years to end delays and boost survival rates. And England have won their one-day cricket series against Ireland. The hosts reached 280 for 4 before the final rain-affected game in Bristol ended in a draw. They're your headlines. News at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you. Siobhan from the Ronaldsway Met Office. Currently a strong wind warning, later a gale warning in the North Irish Sea. State of sea slight or moderate, becoming moderate or rough and very rough tomorrow. The weather this evening dry with a moderate to fresh southwesterly as the rain cleared from earlier on today. It's going to be dry overnight, minimum 12 degrees. Tomorrow, Agnes arrives. A cloudy start, rain arriving by late morning on a fresh southeasterly, increasing gale force in the afternoon. Severe gale force by evening, up to 17 degrees. You heard that yellow weather warning. Forecast for tomorrow may be upgraded to amber tomorrow morning. It should dry up after dark tomorrow as the wind eases, and down to 13 through the night into Thursday. Jordan, sunny intervals at first, cloudier after lunch with rain on the strong south-southwesterly at up to 16 degrees, so watch out tomorrow. Sunset tonight 8 minutes past 7, high tide 5 past 10, low water 29 minutes after 4 a.m. Sunrise 12 minutes after 7 and the morning high water 27 minutes to 11.
Manx Glass and Glazing are able to offer an emergency out-of-hours boarding up service. Call 491918.
A proposed £30 million commercial and residential development in the centre of Douglas is set to move a step clearer. Detailed plans for the Middlemarch site opposite the old Lord Street bus station have been unveiled. John Bell is from the project architects ADG, based in Darlington in England.
Well, the positive news, we have got the application to a position where it has now been submitted to the planning authority, and we are just in the process of trying to get the validation resolved. We are hopeful that the application should be validated either today or early next week.
There are, of course, a number of major developments now being progressed in Douglas, so obviously this is good news for the redevelopment of the town.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that we saw the press article this morning on the 3 other developments in the area, which is obviously this is all positive news for for Douglas, I'd say, and the Isle of Man. So hopefully we can help process and start the vision.
Just remind us what's involved with this development.
What we've done is we've developed a scheme on the site for 97 parking spaces, which is then built on top of that. We've got a restaurant, a casino, offices, and 25 apartments with rooftop gardens.
So providing everything goes ahead with planning, what kind of timescale are you now working to, John?
So subject to planning, obviously, rather than giving specific dates, I think timescales we'll be working to. As soon as we get planning permission, we'll be looking to get to site within 6 months, I would imagine, 6 to 12 months. It just depends on the level of detailed design work we undertake prior to that approval, subject to us getting approval. But yeah, I would like to think 6 to 12 months we'll be on site.
And it's quite a difficult site to develop, I would imagine, right bang in the middle of town.
It is, but we've designed it in such a way that we can actually use parts of the site to ensure that, you know, we're not parking around the area, because we appreciate that's one of the big concerns for a lot of people in and around the area. So we've also started to think how it could be constructed. So although we're filling quite a large part of the site, we are leaving part of the site free, which is where some of the parking is going to be.
Garth MHKs say having one teacher overseeing 2 of its primary schools, as well as another in Douglas, is a stretch. Doon, Laxey and Williston primaries are all part of a federation led by one executive head. Andrew Smith and Daphne Kane MHKs share concerns.
I am a little disappointed, I would suggest, with the DSC as to why they appear to go down this route. But to have one person to oversee 3 schools as well as could be expected, I think that you would lose some of your identity. So I believe I would rather go back. And some people say, well, it's all right to say go back to the old days, but I would rather see Laxey School, Doon School and Williston as they had been previously, from my personal experience having children within Laxey School.
I met with Max Kelly, the executive head teacher of the federated schools, just a week ago, and he tells me that it's working well. I felt that Williston seemed counterintuitive, and I would feel that the first step where Doon and Laxey are only being 4 miles apart or whatever it is, that seemed to work quite well. Not the matter generally of a head teacher, executive head across 3 schools, but I would think that that is the maximum, and I would agree that the head is then less present, obviously, in each of those schools, because you can't stretch yourself between the schools, especially when there's a greater distance. But that isn't something that's been raised with me as an issue. I think it worked well when it was Laxey and Doon. We'll see how it progresses with Williston, but it's not something that I enjoy seeing in terms of the direction of travel for the Department of Education. But it is essential that you have an excellent head of school who is the de facto head teacher for the school, whereas maybe the executive head is more of a financial and administrative.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
The captain of the Parish of Rushen, Stanley Klukas, has resigned from his role. He was appointed in 1998 by the former Lieutenant Governor, Sir Timothy Daunt. Here's our local democracy reporter, Emma Draper.
Arbreen Rushen commissioners say he was an integral part of the parish community, and his resignation is a great loss. The authority says he and wife Pam worked hard for the community with a warm, positive and engaging attitude. He was previously a commissioner and was active in his support to local charities and organisations. In 2016, he donated the Ballatory Nature Reserve to the Manx Wildlife Trust for residents and future generations to enjoy. Mr and Mrs Klukas hosted a party for Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee and supported a coronation party for King Charles III last year. Clerk to Arbreen Rushen Parish Commissioners Phil Gorn said Stanley Klukas was a perfect captain and leaves big shoes to fill. Stan Pilling, chair of the local authority, says he always had time to give people and was quietly at the heart of parish projects. Board member Kiri Jenkins said he set a high standard for public service and has been a steady hand for residents. The Lieutenant Governor will appoint a new captain of the parish in due course.
FC Isle of Man head to Gigg Lane Stadium tonight to face NWCFL Premier Division title hopefuls Bury kick off 8 o'clock, with the Manx side currently without a win in their last 6 outings. Ravens boss Paul Jones has faith in his squad and believes results will improve. He was also asked how much his team's looking forward to playing in front of a big crowd at an historic Football League ground.
Very much looking forward to it. I think as much as from my point of view as manager, we're very much focusing on the performance and not letting the occasion get away from us. We have to recognise it's a big occasion for the club, and the fact that our players and our island and our supporters are able to go to somewhere like Gigg Lane, a historic Football League ground, against a team with a large supporter base who have big aspirations. It should be a really good experience for everybody. We've worked quite a lot in weeks gone in terms of how we play when we have the ball, and that's not been a huge area of focus for us since we've come into the club. It's more about getting us in a really good structure when we don't have the ball. And although I think there's a noticeable improvement in terms of how we are playing when we have the ball, at times that can leave us a little bit exposed if we don't work hard enough to cover spaces. And we're kind of evolving, and as you evolve, things aren't perfect every second of every game. And unfortunately, the last couple of games, although there's huge areas of improvement when we have the ball, and in large parts of the game our out of position shape and structure is solid, there's just kind of a few occasions where that's not the case, and the spaces between everybody are a bit too big, and we're not working hard enough to close them down, and conceding chances that we should never really be conceding. We see an awful lot of progress behind the scenes. Sometimes it's not necessarily noticed in terms of results, and we're working really, really hard. And when things are not quite going your way in terms of the number of points that you're putting on the board, then it's just a case of jumping back in, continuing to work hard, continue to commit to what we're trying to do, because we can see that in time it will have a really big positive impact on the group and makes football going forward.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Battleship Ben McCree left Heysham at 22 minutes to 3. She'll be into Douglas just after 6 o'clock and on the link span towards 6:15. Tonight's departure 8:15. Manxman heads to Heysham. The overnight departure back at 2:15, arriving in Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. The high-speed craft left Douglas at 13 minutes to 2. Got into Liverpool just after 5 o'clock, departing this evening at 7:15, back to Douglas at 11:15. Tomorrow morning's 8:45, Ben McCree to Heysham, subject to possible disruption or cancellation. The decision made by the master at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. All tomorrow's Manannan sailings are cancelled.
Like the Steam Packet on Facebook for the latest sailing information.
A 6-week consultation's looking for feedback on draft animal welfare codes on the Isle of Man. It'll focus on cats, dogs, horses and rabbits. The Russian MHK, Michelle Haywood's deaf as political member for the environment.
We always said we would produce codes of conduct to show good practice for looking after different species, and we've come out with the top 4 at the moment of cats, dogs, horses and rabbits. There may be others to follow if we feel there's need for it, but these are ones that the government vets highlighted most often get complaints about. And so these codes of good practice are really to say to people, this is what you expect it to do. This is, not you have to do it, there's no compulsion, but this is what we'd expect to see for good ownership for those animals. And the consultation is really to just double check that with everyone that they agree. I know we had lots of feedback when the Animal Welfare Bill went through initially, and there was lots of concern about what would be in it and how would we deal with different animals and different aspects of that. So this is really sort of breaking that down now. One of the things that we've done in our primary legislation is we've put the 5 freedoms in there, so to allow the animal to have its own behaviour and to be suitably housed and fed and everything like that. And that's in secondary legislation in the UK. We've put it into our primary legislation, so in some respects it's a little bit stronger. And then these codes just sort of underpin the animals that we're most commonly concerned about. To a large extent, the Animal Welfare Bill was lifted from the current UK legislation. We did go through and there were some clauses in there that we weren't happy with. We have a separate consultation that will be coming out in a few weeks' time about the use of electronic shock collars with dogs. So if anyone's reporting to this consultation and wants to comment on that, there will be further opportunity to comment on that. So we did go through and kind of cherry pick the bits that were relevant, but we didn't want to end up with a bill that covered too much. We wanted to keep it really, really clear that it was about animal welfare and make it very targeted.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, in corporate news, personal care consumer goods maker PZ Cussons held annual guidance despite a fall in full-year profits as cost inflation inflation and issues at its Nigerian operation continued to weigh. The maker of Imperial Leather Soap said pre-tax profit fell 4.2% to 61.8 million sterling as revenue rose 10% to 656.3 million. Earnings were hit by a £16.5 million impairment at the Sanctuary Spa brand, as well as increased investment in its transformation plans. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. On the Isle of Man, a record set of profits for Manx Financial Group plc, the parent company of Conister Bank Limited, announced in its first half-year results for 2023. Driven primarily by Conister Bank, the group recorded a 30% increase in pre-tax profits, up to £3 million, up from £2.3 million to June 2022. Group highlights include pre-tax profits up 30% to £3 million. Lending reached a record £182.6 million, up 65% from last year, and deposits up by £78.9 million, now totalling £332.5 million.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets lower as negative momentum continued in the regions. US stocks fell on Wall Street and oil edged higher after reaching a 2-week low earlier in the session. Gold priced lower. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall at the close in London. Ramsey Crookall reporting the FTSE 100 up 0.07%, almost 0.1%, at 7,629. The DAX in Frankfurt down almost a percentage point at 15,263. In New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial down 0.8% at 33,725. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index down 1 2/10% currently at 13,111. And in the Midwest, in Chicago, the S&P 500 down 1% at 4,290. But of course, the trading day continues. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 21.6 cents, €1 15 cents, and 22 South African rand 14.3 cents. In commodities, gold's down 0.6% at $1,903 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up 0.4% at $92.25.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
This is the most listened to Isle of Man news source, and Manx Radio's Update is the Isle of Man's most downloaded news podcast.
A Douglas man who beat his teenage daughter with a belt and banged her head repeatedly against a wall has narrowly avoided being sent to prison. The story from Tessa Hawley.
At Douglas Courthouse today, the 47-year-old, who can't be named for legal reasons, was sentenced for willfully assaulting his child between the 1st and the 22nd of December last year. The man repeatedly hit the girl with various items, including a slipper, and struck her with his fist and the palm of his hand. She suffered injuries to her knuckles, wrists, face, knees and shins. He also made her kneel in a praying position, telling her, "What have I done to deserve such a horrible daughter?" The teen had referred the matter to the Department of Health and Social Care, and her father was later arrested. She was taken into foster care. Today, a victim impact statement written by her was read to the court, in which she described being scared of not being believed. "What my dad did was wrong," she said. "I told the truth." Describing how she felt her father was trying to isolate her from the world, she said being in foster care had allowed her to finally be a child, adding, "I do not want to go home." The girl told the court she no longer prays because her father was very religious and it brings back bad memories, adding, "It was only when he became more obsessed with religion that he began to change." The man's advocate told the court he was unable to justify his client's behaviour, but that he had learnt from it. He is a loving father. He just got his parenting seriously wrong, the advocate told the court. He realises the enormity of his actions. He's committed to doing whatever it takes to be a better man. Imposing an 8-month custodial sentence, which will be suspended for 2 years, Deputy High Bailiff Rachel Braidwood told him a child should be implicitly able to trust their parents. You betrayed that trust. The man was also placed under a suspended sentence supervision order, fined £1,000 and ordered to pay prosecution costs. He'll also have to pay his daughter £750 in compensation.
Manx Radio Sport.
Fast to my sports editor Rob Pritchard.
Fast to my good evening. Starting with cricket, and the Isle of Man men's national squad is back in action today on day 2 of the 2023 European Cricket Championships in Spain. The Ireland side got off to a flyer yesterday with commanding wins over Czechia and Greece, and hoping to build on those performances going into today. They came up against tough opposition earlier this afternoon in the form of the host Spain, with the Isle of Man choosing to bat first and set a benchmark of 143 to beat. But Spain showed their quality to overhaul that total to finish on 147 for 2 and hand the Ireland side their first defeat of this campaign. Right now, the Isle of Man is taking on France in their 4th and final group game of the series. That match got underway at 5:30. Elsewhere, it's the first day of competition for the Isle of Man darts team at this year's WDF World Cup taking place in Denmark. The first test for the Manx teams today was the women's singles and men's pairs, and a challenging day for all involved. In the women's singles, Janine Halsall, Sophie Hicklin, Jess Corlett and Margaret Kelly all suffered losses against strong opponents in their respective contests. In the men's doubles, there was also defeat for Robbie Nelson and Wayne Harrison. The other pairing of Adi Hogg and Aaron Bradley did win their round of 132 tie, but lost out in the next phase to Wales, Cavan Phillips and Sam Cankert. The competition, in which the island has 5 male and 5 female players involved, is running until Saturday. And in motorsport, TT competitor Paul Jordan is set to part ways with Prez Racing after several years of racing for the outfit. The rider from Macrofelt announced today they won't be working together next year, which he describes as a shame, after Jordan has spent recent weeks working out his plans for 2024. However, Jordan adds he wants to thank Prez Racing for everything over the past few years, also saying, "I can't thank them enough." With Prez Racing by Prosper, which is based in Port St Mary, Jordan secured his first TT podium in 2022 in the Super Twin TT race that year.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Some delays at Ronaldsway tonight. The 5:25 Loganair from Manchester is not due in until 25 to 7. The 10 to 8 Loganair from London City scheduled to land at 10:15 tonight. The 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool delayed inbound at 25 past 8. They're showing the EasyJet 8:15 inbound from Gatwick on time at the moment. Outbound, the 5:30 EasyJet to Liverpool won't be going out until about now. The 4:30 Loganair to London City won't be leaving until 20 to 7. 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool, the patient transfer plane, outbound at 5 past 7. The 8:45 EasyJet from London Gatwick is showing on time. If you're around Governors at the moment, the delays are caused by 3-way traffic lights around Victoria Road for resurfacing. Well, you can't do anything about it. That's just the way it is, I'm sorry. Hillside Avenue is closed for adjacent office window replacement through to Circular Road in Douglas, closed until the 12th of June next year. Near Ballabeg, the Ballagorn Road closed for ditching work. In St John's, temporary lights at Beleg Bridge, and the Newcastle Town Road, of course, closed between Spring Valley Roundabout and the bottom of Richmond Hill for resurfacing.
H&H Motorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646. Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690-300.
And thanks for tuning in tonight to Manx Radio and Update. Many listeners on the Isle of Man and elsewhere have been kind enough to say they like and enjoy half an hour of nothing but Manx news, and often listen to a week's worth of updates as podcasts to get a flavour of the Isle of Man. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are. The Chief Exec of a carers charity on the Isle of Man has called on the Manx Government to carry out a carer's assessment immediately. Jackie Bettridge from Crossroads Care questioned both the Health Minister and the Manx Care Chief Exec over the issue after a presentation on promoting Home First. She spoke to Manx Radio's Lewis Foster.
I think the idea, the concept is absolutely wonderful. I don't think we have bottomed out how we're going to do it. But more importantly for me, doing Home First and keeping carers able, as in home people who live with people who they're caring for, I think that's going to be really, really difficult. We are not doing carers assessments. Carers assessments are not being done. And because of that, we have no idea who is living with who, how it works. No one is getting the care that they might need. We don't know about carers. And Crossroads is 40 years old this year. We've been doing this for 40 years, and I am going to stand up and make sure that that is taken into account.
You said during the first panel that carers on the island, family carers, are the most misunderstood. Is that all down to those assessments, as you said?
Absolutely. I think we just accept the fact that everybody has to just get on with it. I think in reality it gets really hard to do that. Obviously people care for many different reasons, for many different people, for many different ages. But the ageing population, we know it's always been there. The Isle of Man is historically had an ageing population, and we are just not able to understand what carers need to keep people in their own home safely.
Are you satisfied with what you heard in that second half when you challenged them about the assessments? Are you hopeful that now something can be done?
No, I'm not satisfied. No, I'm absolutely not satisfied. It is too little too late. So we need it now. And by now, I do mean now. This autumn, those carers deserve to have carers assessments, just to check that they're okay. And they need to be ongoing. People's lives change, people get older, and for me that is paramount to keeping people in their own homes.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher, producer Amy Griffiths. After the news at 6 in the countryside with Simon Clark and Kerry Kermode. Greatest Hits with Chris Kinley at 6:30, and I'm back tomorrow at 5:30.
WINT